Bam. Hey, everybody. How we doing? How we doing? Hope everybody's having a good day, good evening, good afternoon, whatever you may be. Johnny O. Some of you follow me from the Flat Earth days who would recognize that type of intro. How is everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a great day. Let's see who's in the old side chats. We've got Arisen1157 says, howdy y'all. Hello, hello. Bass here says, hey, Johnny, good to see you. Skits Crasher, hey, hey, hey. Good to see you, Skits Crasher. Janice Farmer says, hi all. Good to see you. Commander Darklight says, hey guys, Commander Darklight, I got to tell you that Slap Your Mama is delicious. It's amazing. I appreciate you sending that. Arisen, we are doing very well. Family's getting along swimmingly or something like that. Mark Stoney says, hey, oh, Mark Stoney, I did send you an email. I'm actually going to talk a little bit about the things that I emailed you about. I can't talk about specifics because I don't have specifics, but I do have some interesting updates on the HOVIND front. Stacy Hansen says, hello, Johnny O. Hey, Stacy Hansen, good to see you. There's a lot of... Stop it, puppy. There's a lot of Gaelic there that I don't speak, but I don't even think I even got close to saying that correctly, but I'm sure Rosen will let me know how terrible that was. Stop it. Jim says hi. Good evening, Jim. Let's see who else. Slim in the house. Slim, when's your next show? Let me know. I'm curious. Freckles, good to see you. Let's see here. Someone tell the stream elements bot no running in the chat room. You'll fall and hurt yourself. That's right. We won't do that. Up and Out says this had better be the ultimate. Zero Win says hello everyone. I know I'm butchering your name every time I say it, but I do the best that I can. Skits Crasher for $2 says hello Johnny O. Thank you so much for that $2 super chat. Really do appreciate it. Strange Ear says howdy y'all. Hello. Elizabeth Sylvester says hey Johnny, good to see you. Bandon with almost is Matthew McConaughey with right on. Beverly Proudfoot says, hey, good to see you. Pay Wackett says, good evening, Johnny and everyone. Good to see you. Patty Melt, hello. That was fair, really, was it? Was it fair? Was it fair or was it not good at all? Lucian Dark Wolf says, hello, good to see you. And then I mocked, what does that say? I can't read it, but hello to you as well. Interesting times, yeah. I don't know if you guys are no fair. Oh, okay, all right. Well, Roshan, you're the expert. I'm not. I don't speak a lick of Gaelic, unfortunately. I would love to learn the language, especially unbeknownst to good old Irish Demon, because he thinks he's going to put me in a situation where I'm not going to be able to handle myself, and I would love to be able to speak like at least passable Gaelic, that when he puts me in that spot, I just get my yeah. You're like, son of a bitch. KCA Randy, good to see you. That was pretty close. Oh, thank you. Commander Darklight says, how's the sauce? It's amazing. And by the way, last week I thanked Peter Noddle for turning me on to some sauce. It wasn't Peter Noddle. It was the other Peter, and I apologize. Thank you so much. Peter. The sauce was good. And yes, the Devil's Tears, I love that stuff. It goes on everything. It's like my go-to sauce, right? It used to be Tabasco because it was easy to get. But Tabasco is not the greatest. It's not terrible. I mean, everybody's like, oh, it's so gross. I mean, it works for, it works for what I need it to work for. Add a little spice, whatever. But yeah, the Devil's Tears, it replaces, when I have Devil's Tears, it replaces the Tabasco because Marvella 54 says, greetings, Johnny. Good to see you. Is that Firad Ejez says, sup, people? Hello. Roshan says, Google sucks. Yeah, Google does suck. Google translates not necessarily the best. Hello, Screaming Cat. Good to see you. Let's see what I got here. Let me make sure. Oh, I do have a. Oh, Mark Stoney, if you're listening, whatever you can share that I can share, let me know, and I'll just send you a link. You can hop on here and we can discuss some of these things. Whatever if you can't share anything, totally understand. I would hate to get in the way of that type of investigation, because some certain people need to come up. Is this I'm going to say? But let me know if you want to come on and let me kind of give us just some whatever details you can. I will shoot you a link right meow. All right. Did I say meow? Do I look like a cat to you, boy? There you go. What are you doing? It's hot outside. Oh, you're inside. I got you. I got you. All right, Mark. I sent you a link. Let me know. Just click that link, follow it, and we'll be good to go. I have noticed that as well, Rosen, that Google Translate butchers sentence structure. And I mean, okay, I get it. It has it's a thing. Whatever. It's dumb. Jumping all nimby bimbly from tree to tree. Shane Stanley, good to see you. Bipolar says, howdy, y'all. Hello, hello. Hey, Mr. Anreg, good to see you. And PSG Tony, I think I saw you sneak in. There you are. Hey, PSG Tony, good to see you. What was that? Your tech guy? Okay, he's on it. Cool. I'd love to have you on and talk about some of the things that are going on. Is this thing on? Says Fred Knotts. I don't think so, but it works. Oh, I got some mean puppies over there being silly. Hi. What are you doing? Oh, quit it. You quit it. You quit it. Just all over the place. Anyway, it's been an interesting past few weeks. Yesterday, my goodness, most of you know that I don't sleep very well because I talk about how often I don't sleep very well. And every now and again, it'll catch up to me. And last night yesterday actually caught up to me because Sunday I had a gaffing job for a commercial, and part of it was an outdoor shoot. And of course, here in Texas, anything as soon as the sun comes up right about now, it's hot, and it's unbearably hot. It gets unbearably hot really quick. And I know there are places that get hotter. I understand, but it's not a competition. Hot is hot. It was I think it was 102 at like noon on Sunday, which was crazy. But we had some outside, we had outdoor, outside stuff, and that kind of takes it out of you. Hey, Pam B, good to see you. Oh, thank you, Tony. Yes, they are adorable. I don't know where they get it from the mother, not from me, but anyway. So running that gig, and then all the sleepless nights and whatnot. It finally caught up to me yesterday, and I got home and just crashed. I passed out, and I think I went to bed like 6 o'clock and wake up till 5:45, 6 o'clock this morning. It was crazy. So it finally came that way. All right. So joining me today, we have Mr. Mark Stoney, who is you are one of the guys that likes to keep an eye on the goings on at Dallas Dinosaur Adventureland.
Yeah, I actually worked there for a couple of years. I was on the board of trustees for the original CSE Trust, which, for those of you that don't know, CSE is Creation Science Evangelism, and that's the corporation of sorts that runs Dinosaur Adventureland and Kent Hovind. But yeah, I've really been trying to expose them lately because there was a major development in one situation where a little boy had come to Dinosaur Adventureland with a registered sex offender. And for discretion, I'm going to leave their names alone. If you guys want to learn more, you can hop on over to my live stream. But right now, it's down. So, yeah, I've got a playlist of about 100 videos that's playing on a loop. It's been a lot of work to keep it going because I've been experiencing hackers, and it's very interactive too. I got another platform that's trying to promote my stream and get the information out there. And right now, what I'm trying to do is reach Kent's donors because the court case is happening, or well, should I say indictments are gonna happen. They're gonna drop soon enough. But he's still raking in money, and there's still children that live on the property, and I found a few bits of information out here recently about the kind of things that are happening there with certain people and children, and it's scary. The IT tech guy, Steve Lynn. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but
A little bit.
Okay, yeah, well, he's a pretty bad dude, and I've been discovering information about how Steve Lynn and Kent's wife's little daughter, who's 10 or 11 years old, and they've been spending a lot of time together in a cabin there at Dinosaur Adventureland. As far as I know, what they're saying, or at least what they're putting out, is that Steve Lynn has been removed from that organization. And if you call his phone number, you'll actually get a voicemail that says he's no longer affiliated with CSE. So they say a lot, but not very much of it is true. So I don't know how far you can believe that, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And even today, I was talking to the boy that was brought to. I'm not going to say those words. Um, the boy that was brought by the sex offender to Dinosaur Adventureland. I was talking to him today and kind of going over some details, and we kind of tied some points together as far as an incident that happened at Dinosaur Adventureland involving, cough syrup and possible sedatives and whatnot. And I think I've got enough witness and even victim testimony to have some probable cause to hand over to the DA and whatnot. So I would definitely say be looking for some action to happen over there in South Alabama, because what they've done is wrong, and they've tried to cover up this situation. And when I say it's not just Kent Hovind. It's anybody and everybody that affiliates themselves with him.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of at a point right now where it's imperative that we suck his donor base dry. Like, we have to dry up his funds, or else he's just going to continue, going out and begging for more money, and people are going to fall for that trap, and he's going to get to continue doing what he's doing. But I think the main goal right now is to get his ass locked up again. So, and he deserves it. He really does. But yeah, go ahead.
So we're talking about more than just the Chris Jones incident. Obviously, we're talking about multiple people involved. Now, there had been people who have alleged certain things about Kent Hovind
Sure.
in this similar type of Chris Jones vein. I think you yourself said that your daughter was tasked to give him massages and whatnot.
Yeah, I was pretty hacked off about that. Last year,
So.
about this time last year, I had a injury. I had a wood shop that I've been trying to build. I've already sold it all off because I got hurt pretty bad doing that, and I was complaining about being sore and not feeling too well about that. My daughter come up to me and said, "Hey, I can give you a massage. I'm the best massager in the world." And I stopped for a second, and I'm thinking, I've never talked to my daughter about massages. This isn't a topic that, you talk to with 5-year-olds. And I think she was 6 or almost 7 when she informed me of this last year. So I called Cindy, who was Kent's wife at the time, and she confirmed it. And I called who was the secretary at the time also, and she was also one that participated in massages. And, I got nothing against somebody getting a massage. Hell, I wish I could have one right now, like a real deep tissue therapeutic massage. That'd be great. But, a kid can't do that. A child is not capable of doing that. And I understand that Cindy and the other women that were giving these massages, that they had the impression that this was like a bonding time, because Kent and Cindy were really close with me and my daughter. And, it was just kind of a connection we had there. Cindy was helping with the homeschooling, and that's why she was at the Hovind house. And it's such irresponsibility to have something like that go on without even talking to the parents, because I never would have given any kind of consent or permission for something like that to take place. But yet here we are talking about it 3 years later, and I'm still mad about it. And I did contact the authorities, and there's a lot of different aspects that go into convicting for a child molestation case, and you have to prove intent. And even a massage, while it could be considered molestation in certain contexts, you would have to prove the intent, and also some kind of constructive touching, or at least physical touching, and that just wasn't the case. The witnesses that were there, it was, he was legitimately just bringing her in to do these massages. And, I hate it because I wouldn't have let that happen, but I'm fairly confident that nothing beyond that happened. But that's not to take away from the immorality of it, just the bad decision making. It's like,
yeah, I mean, when we spoke, and I guess we've spoken a lot through email, when you
right.
brought that up, that is extremely concerning, considering, I mean, that at the very least could be considered grooming.
Oh yeah, and there's no doubt in my mind that there was a lot of grooming going on, especially from Brady Byram, and I don't know if that's a name that your audience is
Mhm.
familiar with, but he's an incestuous pedophile. He did some stuff with his own family
Right.
members, and that's a whole nother level. But he actually helped me with some legal stuff there early on in my time at Dinosaur Adventureland, and we actually grew really close together. But as time moved on, I started noticing he was more and more, friendly with my daughter, and he'd buy her gifts. And even when I moved away, before I found out about his past and cut all ties with him, he would send care packages for my daughter with toys and books and walkie talkies and things that little girls want to have. And it's just like when I found out from Brady's own son about these, it wasn't a convicted thing. It wasn't ever taken to court. The family pretty much granted him some mercy and grace by saying, if you just don't ever contact us again, don't have anything to do with us again, we'll keep this out of the courts. But in my opinion, that's just given someone like that a ticket to reoffend. Like, he's just going to go find other victims.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm coming up with this little I guess campaign or live stream that I'm doing. I just want to gather as much evidence in one place, and this was something that everybody that's been following this has been really concerned with. It's like there's just so much information because Kent puts out videos every day, and there's probably hundreds of people that are making videos showing Kent's discrepancies, and not only his debates and creation evolution stuff, but just in facts of reality. Like, he went on his program and is talking about how I was kicked out of the military, which, I got an honorable discharge, nothing, no problems there in the military whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
He said I got kicked out of DAL, which I left. I left on my own accord. I didn't want to leave, but I had to. I didn't have a choice because there was a tier 3 registered sex offender that was welcome to DAL anytime. And, I had my disagreements with Ken as far as theological positions and doctrinal issues, but that really wasn't my concern at DAL, because I saw potential in that community for outreach and whatnot. But once I got there and started working my way up in trust and having more access and whatnot, it just became clear to me that that was not what I thought it was. And it took me a while to realize that. Cognitive dissonance is a real thing, and it really
Mm-hmm.
plagues people that are in these cults because they really are brainwashed. I mean, you can show somebody the truth and the facts and what's going on, and they're just going to mock you. And I'm guilty of that. I was very guilty of being hostile with people who were genuinely trying to help, that had genuine concerns for my daughter being there. I hate to say that the people that are there and know this stuff are not complicit, because I really believe they are at this point, because they know everything that's happened. They know, and they're still there, and they're still supporting.
It's interesting
So,
to use the word cult.
yeah.
Because a lot of people look at the goings on at Dinosaur Adventureland, the
Mm-hmm.
figurehead that Kent Hovind is, and would easily draw that conclusion.
Sure.
That being said, I also hear there are two types of DAL folk. There are the people who genuinely believe in the Kent Hovind version of scripture and doctrine, and then those are the preppers, so to speak.
Sure.
Now, do you think that, from what I understand, there's at least a decent amount of registered and unregistered firearms at DAL? Do you think that if we get into a situation where it's time for Hovind's come up, and so we might see something like a Waco happening?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. When I was there was a lot of guns. I'm not there anymore, and neither is another individual or another family. I'm former infantry, and I'm proficient and knowledgeable, and highly trained with firearms. So I don't think they're going to run into anything like that. I don't know what would have happened if a raid had occurred while I was there, but I don't think I would have been stupid enough to create a Waco event by any means. But there are guns on the property. There's even felons with guns on the property. I can name one at least. But I don't want to give out names because
Sure.
it just it's discretion. And I could say this with a fair amount of confidence that the state of armed, I guess, nature of the people there is nowhere near the extent that it used to be. But I understand why it's a concern for the police. Nobody's going to want to go in there thinking that they're going to get shot. And as a matter of fact, when Kent was arrested for his domestic violence thing, they arrested him at the courthouse because they didn't want to go to the property. They were afraid that Kent would have his people blast them. I mean, that was a legitimate concern of the arresting officer. He said, like, I came here because they can't touch me here, and Kent's here anyway, so it's the easiest and safest solution. Now he is going to be back in court in December on that domestic assault, but I'm hoping that he gets detained before that. And I do know that there's investigations. I know that there's sealed indictments, and I know that it's a lot bigger than just Kent Hovind and Dinosaur Adventureland. And they've got they've got ties to Hiles Anderson College. And I actually received a recording of Kent calling someone from Hiles Anderson College trying to justify leaving Cindy and moving on to Sandra. So there is a lot of stuff going on with that institution, and a lot of people are being arrested and imprisoned for things related to child pedophilia and sexual abuse and that sort of thing. And Kent is calling them, asking them for counsel. So I don't know how big this disgusting perversion reaches from this organization, but it's a lot bigger than I thought originally, and it's a lot more than why I left even. And it's like every rabbit hole I find is just you chase it and you find pedophiles at the end of it, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, the when I got involved, it was a subscriber of mine had shown me the truck driving Kid Billy video where he was talking about asking Kent about this whole situation, and some other people were talking about the reason why Jones was allowed was because everybody deserves a second chance and all this mess. And my biggest contention has always been, how can somebody have a second chance if they don't even believe the first one was violated? Because
it's not even a situation of having a second chance. It's Kent promotes this man as being completely innocent and set up. And if you go and look at how he's defended him, he brings up this situation where there was it was back in, my goodness, early 2000s, but a former FBI investigator or chief field officer or whatever, I don't know what he was, but Ted Gunderson was doing a political hit piece against the presiding judge in that county, and it's Orange County. So if you want to go and look it up, but Kent uses a 3-minute video from this man Ted Gunderson and he did mention that Chris's case was a travesty of justice, and it was wrought with tampering and whatnot. But he said that he wasn't given the opportunity to present his evidence in court, yet he's doing this political hit piece and is making the same claims and not presenting the evidence that he said he had. It's by no means an exoneration of Chris Jones. It was a political ad paid for by an opponent of the judge that was presiding in that county. So that whole excuse just completely nullifies the whole second chance
right
thing. It's not a second chance. It's this guy was never proven innocent, and he maintains that he's innocent, even though all of it, there's no evidence that suggests that he is innocent.
Well, the thing that gets me, he admits to the strip poker game. That in itself right there should be I mean, exactly. There's certain things that just fall into that category of shit you just don't do.
Right. And that's another big problem, because if you've done any research on Chris Jones's trial and his indictments and even his appeal, you'll find that there wasn't just one incident of strip poker. No,
Oh
this
no. Yeah.
pulled children over multiple years, and there were actually 8 indictments on Chris Jones when he was arrested. 8 different indictments from 8 separate occurrences, and 2 of those were actually joined, and that was something that Chris had appealed or contested in his appeal. And of the other cases, 4 of them he was convicted on, and he was acquitted and had mistrials on the other. Well, not acquitted. He wasn't acquitted on anything. He had mistrials, and then there was like a jury form that was not done properly or something. So, but it didn't matter. It wasn't going to affect his sentencing. He was still going away for 9 years, and that's how long he was. So it was an easy conviction, and they just said, okay, well, we'll just run with this and not spend all the time fixing the jury errors. And it just, he was convicted by a jury of his peers in a fair court with a judge that's not corrupt. He wasn't a corrupt judge. I know that Ted Gunderson was trying to promote that,
Right.
but just
Well,
wasn't.
even if he was, the appellate court upheld the decision.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah, they rejected all of
every
it.
last one of them. Yeah, there wasn't a point where they said, "Yeah, you may have had a no." Like, no, this is as clear cut a case of these actions as we've seen.
Right. And it wasn't just that it was upheld, which, I mean, it was, but none of the contentions had anything to do with his guilt or innocence. He was
Right.
contending things like the jury forms. He contended things like the joining of the 2 cases, and also some pictures that were too big for his liking in the jury room. And there was never anything of this extra evidence that wasn't included, which an appeal would be the place to include that. And it
Right.
just wasn't the case. He was floundering. He had no defense, and he
Yeah,
still
I mean,
doesn't.
it was just painfully obvious that this is, again, it was just
Yeah,
clear cut on this one here. So I have a question.
absolutely.
So PhD Tony says, does your guest have any opinion about Kent's general trustworthiness? Does he see
No, he's not trustworthy.
Does he see Kent as someone who is exploiting his donor's gullibility? Because that's what we have long said. Do you think that Kent is exploiting the gullibility of those who?
That and a lot more. It's even worse than that, because when Steve was actively with the ministry, whether he is now or not, it doesn't really matter. All 3 secretaries that were there during his time have said that he was stealing money. He would walk into where the donation box was and just pocket a whole bunch of cash. And then, even with one of the girls that was running the kitchen before, she was given a budget of $1,200, but Steve was only giving her $400. And when Steve was arrested in, I think last October it was, he was on a meth binge and freaked out, thought CIA helicopters were coming after him. He stole a truck and then got arrested. And Kent pretends like that's not even a big deal. He doesn't even hardly mention it, and yet he keeps this guy around. And right after his arrest, he confessed to the guy that was taking him to rehab, and he's also a DAL employee. And he told him that he had embezzled tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we did an interview with Chris Baker, the new financier of CSE,
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, and he said that Steve had reimbursed the ministry with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yeah, the funds are definitely not going to what you think they're going to. One of the issues with that is he says, write your checks to CSE. Well, they've got multiple CSE corporations, entities. There's CSE Ministries Inc., there's CSE Ministries, there's CSE Nonprofit, there's CSE For Profit. It's just, the list goes on. I think there's like 7 of them. And when you write a check to CSE and you've got all these different entities named CSE, and one of them actually was CSE and IT Productions, which was Steve Lynn. So that anybody and everybody in that organization that had one of these shell corporations or what have you, they could access the money for whatever they wanted. And Steve was buying expensive Jeeps, expensive filming equipment, and quite literally a porn studio in his house that was discovered right after his arrest.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah, that's, yeah. And I've got
So
witnesses that were actually there when Kent ordered everybody to go clear out his house so that when the police come to serve a search warrant, they wouldn't find anything. And there were all kinds of incriminating sex clips, films, or whatever you want to say, of people that worked for DAL. I know of one for certain, and there's been rumors of several more. And it's just I don't know how to describe what DAL is other than a giant film set. It's just a prop, it's got crappy construction, but when you look at, the videos, it looks halfway decent, but you go in there and it's like, wow, what happened here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a stage prop, and Kent's an actor, and he's doing this to conceal something. And what that is well, pedophilia for sure. And then who knows what else? How far does that go?
So when my research buddy and I were looking into the Chris Jones aspect, there was another name that got brought up, and that was Paul
Hansen.
Paul Hansen.
Yep.
And how Paul Hansen, I can't say that this is confirmed because we haven't done the forensic accounting on it to confirm any of this stuff, but it had the appearances of money laundering.
Yeah.
Through like MLM and through different properties here and there and real estate acquisitions. And
have you found out about the new extracts, the supplements that Ernie makes in his basement and sells internationally?
So that's what we were looking. That's what started us down that rabbit hole, was Ernie Land and all of his different just woo extracts that it gave us. That's what gave us the hint that there could be something else going on.
Yeah. Well, I received a tip from somebody that I trust that said that this Chris Jones guy has warrants internationally. And I don't know if that can be confirmed at this point, but the person that told me that I trust. And I don't think that she would lead me astray. That being said, with Paul Hansen, he's cruising out in the Gulf of Mexico on a freaking yacht right now, doing what he does. I had with Adam Lohr. If you look up Adam Lohr on YouTube, I sat down with Paul Hansen and Adam Lohr, and we had an interview. And if you want to kind of see what kind of shady guy Paul is, the end of that interview, Adam concluded it by saying, "Paul, you're a sick fuck." And I mean, it was that bad. It really was. And Adam's a pretty reserved guy. He really is. He's a great interviewer, by the way. But yeah, you can go to my channel and find that, and you can go to Adam's channel and find that. And it's some pretty damning stuff. It really is.
Now, out of PhD Tony's got another question. Says, what your guest just described, Kent ordering people to clean out a building ahead of a police search, seems like a crime. Have you reported this?
Right. It's been reported. Yeah, it has. I didn't report it, but local people have. And here's the problem with the locals. This is Conecuh County, Alabama. I grew up in Alabama, and it was just common knowledge that Conecuh County was a corrupt county. I've never really done any research on it, but you kind of just intrinsically know things about the state that you live in. Like, the areas to avoid, where you don't want to get caught with drugs or guns or what have you. Not that I'm a drug or gun runner or anything. I'm just giving examples. But yeah, Conecuh County is well known in the state of Alabama to be a very corrupt county. And not only that, it's the poorest county. So with this dinosaur Adventureland being in the middle of Conecuh County and Kent building like crazy for years on end, it seems like they're very hesitant to move on him because he's generating a lot of revenue for them.
So money is protecting money.
Yeah, I've talked to people at Conecuh County with some. I called the Conecuh County Sheriff's Department when I found out about my daughter and the massages. And they're like, "Well, you're going to have to come in if you want to give a statement." I live in Washington. I can't come in. I escaped the cult. I don't want to go back. So it's been one thing after another with Conecuh County, and even with Chris Jones, we've run into some difficulties because his the address that he has on his South Carolina public registry database or what have you is 89 Farrington Place, and I can say that because it is public record. But when you call the county, they say, well, that's our Department of Public Safety. There's no pedophiles living there because it's our Department of Public Safety. But what happened there what happened there is Chris's mom used to work for the Department of Public Safety, and she has the house titled in a deed that's managed by the Department of Public Safety. So when you've got your little dispatch officer sitting there typing in 89 Farrington Place in Aiken, South Carolina, it's coming up as Department of Public Safety, and I'm the idiot that doesn't realize that pedophiles don't live at the police station. So it's a lot of weird stuff going on.
That is unusual. Aaron Reese wants to know if DAL is making campaign donations, to your knowledge.
No, not that I know of. I know that Kent had this huge petition when Trump was in office, begging to have Trump pardon him, and it fell on deaf ears because nobody cares about Kent Hovind anymore. He's relatively obscure and irrelevant compared to what he used to be. But he does still have a 180,000 subscriber base, even though there's a lot of speculation that a lot of those subscribers are purchased, especially considering his videos rarely get over 10,000 views.
I was going to say the numbers don't particularly lie on that one here.
My little bitty channel, I'm sorry to interrupt. My little bitty channel, my tiny channel, I had like maybe in the teens of subscribers before I started making Kent Hovind videos. And even now it's only like 230 something, but I'm getting 5,000 views a day. Well, not a day, 5,000 views in a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm consistently getting around 1,000 or more views a day. And it's just like, I don't even have that many subscriptions. So looking at Kent's stuff, and he's streaming live every day. What's going on there?
Yeah, there's some discrepancies when he adds, according to other sites that keep an eye on that thing, when he adds exactly 1,000 subscribers, but his view times on his videos don't change or they go down. There are a lot of things here that are indicative of someone who is purchasing subscribers.
Sure. And YouTube doesn't like that.
No, because
they get upset with that.
It's really the dumbest thing you can do, honestly. Even if YouTube didn't like put that in their terms of service, it's the stupidest thing you can do, because all it does is it shows the algorithm that even the people who subscribe to your channel don't want to watch your videos. So why should they push your channel? But yeah. Let's see here. If he's using his YouTube channel as any kind of mask for moving money illegally, then it makes sense that he's purchasing views to look more profitable. You would think, but yeah, I don't think he even he understands how that works. The purchase, because services will provide all kinds of silliness, but it's just not even worth it. The money that you have to spend to get this types of services is just ridiculous when it comes to return on investment. But if that was the worst that Kent Hovind was doing, I think we would all like, whatever, no big deal. So there are a lot of allegations being levied in Hovind's way, especially in light of the things that you have discovered.
And I like what you said the other night. I got receipts, and I really do.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing these receipts, because I've got some receipts, and I know you've got a boatload more because you've been a little more heavily involved in this than I have.
And people are coming to me with their recordings that they made while they were there, and video and text messages and stuff. And I'm doing the best I can to sort through everything, but I haven't even got through all of my receipts. And it's been a year.
I imagine it's quite a bit, especially with as extensive as stuff that you're talking about. This is definitely not, I wouldn't have believed the Chris Jones thing to be a one-off. And then when the Brady Byram thing happened, that's like, okay, now we've got two. This is a rabbit hole that if we keep digging, there's just going to be more and more and more. And apparently,
and I brought up Steve Lynn and the fact that he had a porn studio in his house before he was arrested, and then he was moved to DAL. And then when Sandra moved in and married Kent, Steve started spending a lot of time with this 11-year-old girl. And like, Steve's a perv. He totally is a pervert. He had sex with one of the secretaries. She was married, and he did it just to have blackmail on her. The guy's a total creep. Total creep.
So with all this going into, all this investigation on your side going into Kent Hovind and DAL and all these people, Fred Knotts, like a lot of people are wondering, are you getting death threats?
Yeah, I've had death threats, 2 specifically so far. And I moved 2,500 miles away from Dinosaur Adventureland, and the death threats were coming from that place. One of the death threats was from Steve, actually, back in 2020. Another time where he had rage quit the ministry or whatever, and Kent told me and another guy to go to Steve's house and get the ministry equipment. And I knocked on the door, and he said he was going to blow my head off if I didn't get off his property. So I turned around and went back and got in the van and told Kent he's going to have to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened at the end of that situation. It was really weird, all the events that transpired from when I knocked on the door to when Kent got there, because Steve started just cussing Kent out. And then Kent called Ernie, and Ernie talked to Kent for just a few minutes. And then it was all good. Everything was fine and back to normal, and Steve was reinstated. And I come up to Steve and I said, "What the hell just happened, Steve?" And he's like, "Look, there's something that I know that I can't talk about, and I've got like an NDA or something." And he's like, "Forget I even said it, because if you ever bring it up, I'll just deny it." And he told me stuff like that multiple times.
Hmm.
So just, a shady, shady, shady guy. And this was their golden boy. He really was.
So it seems like you had plenty of reason to skedaddle out of there.
Mhm.
You've been gone for what, 3 years now?
I left in January of 2020, actually, on Inauguration Day. And, well, that's when I took off to move to Washington. I left a couple weeks before that and stayed with a friend's house. So, yeah, January 2021 was when I left. So it's been a couple years.
In that time, how has like the reflection been on your time at DAL?
Well, it's really hard to describe, because it's like what I wanted DAL to be. I had built up this image in my mind, even while I was there, before I was there, and even while I was there. And once I got away from the place, and once I got away from Kent's paranoia and his constant, um, just domineering, authoritarian bravado, I guess you could say, because that's what he is. I just started to see things a little differently, and my mind started to become a little more clear, and I started remembering things, and I'd been ignoring, like, I was still in group chat texts,
Mhm.
message things, and I was still getting all these texts, and I just silenced them. I was like, I'm not going to pay any attention to this. I've moved on. I'm done. But then I started looking at these texts, and I'm starting to remember things, and I'm starting to piece together these events that had happened. And I'm like, all right, I can't keep my mouth shut, because, I know what happened to that little boy, and they're still not giving answers to where he is. And by the way, I found Zaire. I did. I found him
Yes, right,
a
right,
couple weeks
yes.
ago, and he's alive and well. He's been through some shit, but he's doing okay. I've kind of taken up a mentorship for him, like a big brother thing, and we talk a lot. And he's going through a lot of stuff, and his family's going through a lot of stuff. And but yeah, they are pressing charges. Chris will be going back to jail, and Kent's involvement with this, as far as what happened at DAL with the boy and Chris, like, Kent not only enabled it, but he encouraged it. He like forced it almost, because the dude was supposed to sleep in the man cave, and Zaire was supposed to sleep in there, and the other men were, hopefully nothing would happen, either that or something really bad. But I'm not going to go down that road.
Right.
They had alternative lodging, and Kent decided to put them in an empty house off the property for plausible deniability, I guess. I don't know.
Hmm. Seems like that could backfire,
Oh, and it will.
especially with his being a registered sex offender.
And Kent knew he was a registered sex offender, and he openly say, "I don't care about the list.
Hmm.
My friend, he's coming." And I got to tell you, my phone's got like 5% battery, so
No worries, no worries.
um,
I think we're gonna wrap
that's
it
not
up with this
bad.
question here. Stroke Assaulter says, "Do you have any knowledge about the drowning death at DAL?"
Yeah, I was there. My daughter was actually swimming in the lake at the time. I was shooting pool with the kid's dad, right there at the pavilion, which is overlooking the lake. So we weren't like super super focused on the kids by any means, but I was keeping an eye. My daughter swims great. She's a dang fish. Um. Anyway, I noticed that one of the kids was getting kind of far out, and it looked like he was bobbing up and down trying to get some air. And I told the dad, I was like, "Look, your kid's getting pretty far out. And does he know how to swim?" And he's like, "No, they've never been in the lake before." And then he just takes off sprinting and screaming and causing this whole scene. And nobody saw what happened to the other kid. I didn't see. I remember like vaguely seeing a kid running down the dock. I don't remember which direction. And he the father goes out and pulls the boy to shore, the one that was struggling, and he was fine. He was doing okay. And my daughter actually helped another one of the kids, you know, out of the water. But once the father and the son were on the shore, and he started scolding them and like saying, "Don't ever do that again." He's looking around and he's looking for his son, his other son, and he had 5 kids, and the boy's name is Steven. And it was like a sudden, like, I don't even know how, it was like a switch flipped, and everybody went into, like, everybody dropped what they were doing and just started looking for him immediately. And I was running around the pavilion looking to see if he was on the other side. And then I come around, I made a circle around the pavilion, and I noticed that the dad was running back out into the lake, and he actually trips over the boy's body right there next to the dock and pulled him out, and he was blue. And he had a big knot like right here, so obviously he hit his head, but nobody saw it, nobody knew. And I don't know if there was anything that could have been done anyway, because if you're unconscious and you go underwater, like, you're not going to stop breathing,
right?
So tragedy it was.
Yeah.
But and what really kind of sealed the deal there, and this was really, I'm glad you brought it up, because that was actually the point when I decided, this isn't right, is when he got on his YouTube and started, like, the kids had so much fun, they can't wait to come back, and went straight into attacking Robert Beatty. And like, there was no sympathy, there was no mourning, it was just like, this is so annoying, I have to address it,
Right.
And that just showed me that he had no soul.
Yeah, it was very interesting that as I saw that response, his family was had a great time, they can't wait to come back. I was like, really? Yeah.
And he was handing out DAL flyers at the hospital while the kid's family was mourning. The kid's being pronounced dead, and Kent's in there passing out flyers for his stupid theme park.
That's yeah, my goodness. Goodness. You can answer this question if you'd like. I know you're about to die, but the phone is about to die.
It's going to happen in a minute, so if I disconnect, that's why.
All right. Does Kent's behavior encourage you to reconsider what Kent pronounced as scientific fact?
Well, Kent doesn't. Kent's confused when he debates. He thinks he's debating science, but what he's really debating is philosophy, and his philosophy is even bad, because he was just on a debate today with Mark Reed was his name, and he was over on Standing for Truth, and Mark's pointing out all these scientific studies and research and actual pictures of genes and how they connect and everything. And Kent just goes on this gish gallop, and he's talking about origins, which, origins is not a part of evolution. It is a part of creation, but it's not a part of evolution. So when he's going to debate evolutionists using philosophy as his defeating argument, he's defeating himself, because he's totally strawmanning the entire debate.
That's interesting you put it that way. Philosophy, and it's bad philosophy at that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a creationist, and I would even go as far as to say I'm a young earth creationist, but I also know that the Bible says that God created the world with age. I mean, Adam was born a fully formed man. And, you wouldn't look at Adam on the first day of his creation as an infant. He was walking, talking, breathing, and everything. So I think it's perfectly rational for scientists to look at the evidence and say, yeah, this looks to be billions of years old or millions of years old. I don't think that conflicts with scripture at all. But then again, Kent doesn't come at it with a scientific, debate, an argument. He's arguing philosophy.
Yeah, I think personally, I just think that I don't understand. For me, the theory of evolution and the belief in a higher power aren't mutually exclusive. Like, just
Right.
because evolution is true doesn't negate the fact that there could or could not be a higher power, right?
Sure.
Evolution could just be the way that this higher power chooses to create, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
And that actually is supported biblically, because if God created everything with age, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see these processes, the evidence of these processes.
mhm, mhm. That's an area that gets a little bit outside of my expertise,
Sure. Sure, yeah.
talking about either scripture or.
I'm actually agreeing with you on a lot of this stuff, even if it doesn't seem like it.
Oh no, fair enough. So here's where we're going to leave this, because I know your phone is about to give out on you. I would like to have you back whenever you're more able to speak about some of the things that you have.
Sure.
So whenever you are ready, the invitation is always going to be open.
Okay.
The story that once I've caught wind of it, I want to keep kind of a close eye on it, because
Right.
these are the things that draw my attention. Getting people whom prey upon other people, especially children, there's no place in the real world for them. They need to
No.
be removed.
Yeah, I think atheists, Christians, Muslims, anybody will agree that children are the future. And if we don't take care of them in their most vulnerable stages in life, they're going to grow up to be terrible humans. And, what kind of a world do we want to live in that's full of terrible humans? We got enough of them already.
Right. Well, Mark, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate your candid responses. And again,
Right.
the invitation is always open. Anytime you are ready, you let me know. We will do this.
Good deal. All right. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Well, that was Mark Stoney, giving us a bit of an update on the goings on with Kent Hovind. It's interesting. It's very interesting that the amount, like, anybody who's been paying attention to this, and I want to welcome PhD Tony to the stream. Anyone who's been paying attention to the whole Kent Hovind thing, especially with the Chris Jones, Zaire, Chris Jones being a registered sex offender, knows that this is not something that generally just happens. There's never just a one-off.
Yeah, this is. I was quite impressed with your guest's answers to a bunch of questions, and it struck me that what we're seeing here is that Kent Hovind has set up a community of victims that he can predate. That there's sort of a miniature kingdom that he can use. And there is some sexual exploitation, as your guest mentioned, but the main thing is that Kent wants these people that he can suck money out of and wield influence over. Those seem to be his primary drivers. And it's interesting because your guest doesn't seem to be the typical person who would fall into that. The people that Kent Hovind really preys upon are the people who believe his spiel, his nonsense about, his bad philosophy, as your previous guest described it, which is a really great way to think about what he's doing, because he claims that he's a science teacher, he claims that he's challenging the science, but he's a con man, he's a huckster. That's what he is. And people who believe what he's saying, people who believe his science, they're very vulnerable because they don't have the intellectual ability to protect themselves from that sort of predation. They don't take care. They aren't meticulous in their thought processes. They don't particularly care about, tracking that the money that they're donating is going where they think it should be going. They're very trusting. They're gullible to some extent, though that seems like a very negative word. But they are at the mercy of somebody without any mercy. He's just a predator.
Absolutely, and I find it interesting that Mark Stoney was describing a culture of predation upon children at DAL, at Dallas Dinosaur. I always want to call it Dallas because DAL and like that's what it's so bad. But at Dinosaur Adventureland, it seems that Kent Hovind is just, not only does he harbor, but he fosters this very, very concerning culture of predation upon children.
I think that your guest really hit on it when he said, Kent Hovind doesn't have a soul. The existence of the soul as a scientific thing is not established, but Kent Hovind doesn't have a conscience. Kent Hovind is completely immoral, and so if he finds somebody who's useful to him, who happens to be a child predator, he'll use that person without compunction, and he'll defend that person because that person is useful to him. That's because he doesn't feel bad. He doesn't feel guilt over these things. It's and that's why this sort of individual is extremely concerning. And it doesn't seem to me like Kent is actually, that remarkable. There are many of these people around who do this, and you can look at some of the larger mega churches, for instance, who sort of industrialize the same rapacity, where they just treat their congregations as money faucets.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at these mega churches like freaking Kenneth Copeland and Osteen and Creflo and all these just snake oil salesmen who have no problem begging for a $50 million plane because they don't want to, quote, ride with demons.
Yeah, it's nonsense. They don't need that money, and to me, it's a betrayal of the Christian message. Like, I'm not a Christian now, but I was a Christian for 30, 40 years, and the central charity, faith without good works is dead. Right? That's that's one of the biblical passages. If you're squeezing money out of people who can't really afford it, and then you're spending it on luxury for yourself, that's not a good work. That's that's you exploiting people, and that's not the Christian message at all. I mean, one of the most famous passages in Christ's ministry is the scene where he kicks the tax collectors out of the temple. Because religion shouldn't be about collecting material wealth. It just seems like it's this huge betrayal of Christianity as a religion.
Yeah, it's funny to me that Christ, according to the Bible, walked with tax collectors, hookers, and whatnot. He had no problem doing that. No problem, quote, riding with the demons, so to speak. Yet here we are with these multi-millionaire ministries that it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but that's I think you've taken a step too far into there. Christ didn't view tax collectors, prostitutes, or whatever as demons, because they weren't. They were just people who had done stuff, and they were people he could help. So when the pastor says, "I'm not going to ride with demons," I'm not going to help people who might need help.
Right.
That's what he's saying.
Exactly.
And it's there is sort of a large scale. I think the idea of making religions tax exempt is a bad idea, because at that point they become basically unaccountable. They can do with the money what they will, and people are just exploiting this. They're subjugating. It is exactly analogous to a feudal lord who has people go out and do the hard work and then just give him the money. It's a feudal society, and it works very well if you're part of the aristocracy, but not so well if you're one of the poorer members. And I think that there need to be some reforms in the way churches are administered. I'm not anti-religious. I don't have religious beliefs myself, but I can see how they are extremely important to people's mental health and their emotional well-being, and I don't want to attack that. But what I do want to attack is people who manipulate and abuse.
Right, the predacious nature of these people whom will tell you while you're on furlough because of a pandemic, a global pandemic, that you still need to get down to the church and put money in the coffers, even though you're not making money yourself. I mean, how insane is that? Need-based bullshit, sow your seed, with as much seed has been sowed in Kenneth Copeland's church, you would think there would be hundreds, if not thousands, of extra millionaires is running around, but there aren't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's up and out goes, are they tax exempt in the UK? Sorry, I think they are. They're certainly tax exempt in Australia, which is where I'm from. Perhaps up and out and mistook my accent, but yeah, the religion has its place, but like any institution, it can be corrupted. And I mean, you can see this in multiple religious institutions, in any denominations.
Mm-hmm.
They get corrupted they get corrupted as they gain wealth and influence.
Well, look at the Catholic Church. It's the largest. I mean, the Catholic Church is not a church anymore. It's the largest bank of collectively owned wealth in the world.
Yeah. And I was raised a Catholic, which for some people would suggest that I'm not a Christian, but or was never a Christian. But the point at which I lost any patience with the Catholic Church was the point at which our Cardinal Pell, restructured the Catholic Church's assets in Australia so that they couldn't be sued by the victims of pedophile priests.
Mm.
So let me get this right. We're supposed to go to church and we're supposed to confess our sins and repent every single week. But when the church as an institution, facilitates, the victimization of kids over decades and the destruction of lives, and some of these victims committed suicide. Others have had, their lives
problems or
reduced to rubble. Yeah, exactly. But the church doesn't have to pay. The church is not responsible. The church is protected from being accountable for its sins. And it was at that point that the sheer corruption of the entire enterprise. And I could not believe that priests who claim that they're praying to God, that they're in communication with God every day, or indeed, regular worshippers who pray to God every day, God never told them, perhaps don't be such a prick.
Right.
Never occurred to him to say that.
The thing about what I used to, again, I was always aligned a little bit more Catholic because of my familial heritage and whatnot. But the thing that I used to be one of these guys that, you see pedophilia not just in the Catholic Church, you see it all over. You see it in Southern Baptist, Methodist, etc. And I never understood. Well, I didn't say never understood, but at the time I didn't understand just the gravity of what was really going on. It wasn't just the fact that pedophilia was happening in the Catholic Church. It was fact that it went all the way up to the archdiocese and beyond. Mm-hmm. The cover-up, the way they would, instead of taking care of the issue, they would try and cover it up. And just, we'll just move priests and then that'll solve the issue. Because, if I take a priest from Boston and move him to Florence, Italy, they're just all of a sudden going to stop wanting to diddle children. That's not how that works. Yeah. And, the blatant denials and, if it wasn't for the good work of the Boston Globe, then we'd probably still be hearing the whispers about it, but nobody would have done anything about it.
Yes. And it's, I'm not sure if you've seen the movie Spotlight, but it's, it's well worth watching. And, they make the point that the Michael Keaton's character goes, I wrote the story that was buried on page 16 about this case. That was me. I helped in this cover-up. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just didn't believe them. I wasn't willing to listen to them. And that's something that we've got to be very aware of. And it's, there are, it's not the case that we can automatically believe everybody who comes forward and claims to be a victim. I am thinking in particular of Amber Heard's claims to be a victim
Right.
of domestic abuse, which to me seem patently false. And it's not because I don't believe the claims of women. It's not because she's female. I don't believe Amber Heard's stories because they don't make any sense. And she's a terrible liar.
She's not a good actor?
No, she's not a good actor at all. Yeah. I think I mentioned this before, but I did a lot of watching the channel because in my marriage, I feel I was the victim of domestic abuse. It took different forms in my marriage, but it was something that was of interest to me. And I was watching the trial, and when Johnny Depp was testifying, she had this sad face. I was just, and I, and that isn't actually the emotion she should have been experiencing. Here was somebody she allegedly loved who was standing up and telling the world a bunch of egregious lies about her, concealing the abuse that she should have been angry.
Right.
She should have been outraged. But there was not a flicker of anger, not a flicker of outrage, not even a scintilla of basic human emotion. There was just this sad puppy dog, pity me face. Okay, and you weren't, and she wasn't even doing the face properly. If you look at body language, if you look at body language analysis, they'll tell you that the reason the corners of the mouth go down when you're sad is because the muscles in your face just relax. They all relax at the same time, and the corners of your mouth go down. It's not because there's any muscular flexure,
right,
in the corners of the mouth. So she was doing the wrong facial gesture. She was doing the facial gesture incorrectly, and it wasn't the right facial gesture. It was nonsense, and transparently nonsense.
right.
But I'm digressing. We assess whether or not a victim's claims are credible on a case-by-case basis. We don't make blanket statements. We don't say Amber Heard is female, therefore her story must be believed. We don't, but we know that a lot of these cases of abuse, the victims, they don't have much evidence other than their testimony.
Right.
And so we need to look at each individual's testimony and determine its credibility. And we don't allow anybody, if it's a prominent celebrity like Jimmy Savile or Rolf Harris or Bill Cosby, we don't give them a free ride. We don't say, oh, well, I like this. I like the material that they produce, so they get a free ride. I don't take it seriously. We examine each and every one of these, but we don't rush to judgment. We assess the credibility of the claims. There are nuisance claimants. There are lots of people who will try and abuse the victim card. But at the same time, we need to be more protective of the vulnerable in our society.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's bringing this back to the reason for the show tonight, the Dallas, damn it, I did it again, Dinosaur Adventureland. My goodness. With the whole Kent Hovind, I think he is providing a similar type of protection that the Catholic Church did, not on that scale, obviously, but definitely a similar type of protection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So he sees his institution as, it's difficult to tell how genuine he is, but he would argue that the welfare of his institution is more important than, a kid died. Yeah, kids die all the time.
Right.
My institution is more important than that. That's Kent had it, and it's the same with the Catholic Church, but it's exactly the same mindset. We'll cover up crimes, we'll conceal what we're doing because our existence is better. And I'm kind of torn. Kent Hovind may believe that he's doing God's work, but it's more likely to me that he's just doing this because it makes him a comfortable living.
Yeah, I would really look that this is more about the money aspect for Hovind, which just makes him another giant grifter. And a really bad one at that, because of the things that are. just going out. The allegations, the amount of allegations that continue to come up against the things that have happened at Ken Hovind's compound is just staggering.
Yeah.
Road No Last Name has a solution to my issue. He says, just start calling it Dumb Fuck Adventureland. Fair enough.
That will work. But yeah, it's he is a very worrying individual, and somebody we need to pay a lot of attention to, because things can go very, very badly with that sort of personality.
Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I often get the questions, well, why do you cover this type of stuff? Because all you're doing is giving this type of thing attention. And I would argue that this type of stuff needs attention. We need to be calling out specifically this guy, because it's not like we're drawing attention to a silly flat earth belief. We're drawing attention to somebody who fosters and harbors pedophiles.
Yeah.
And I can say that without having to say allegedly, because Kent Hovind continues to give Chris Jones safe harbor at Dinosaur Adventureland.
Exactly. The thing is that we need to hold all institutions, and it's not just religious institutions, but all institutions need to be held accountable for the actions of their members. They need to be held to a standard where they are providing a safe environment for everybody who comes under their care.
Right.
And so it's got nothing to do with whether they're religious or not. It's got nothing to do with their particular ideologies. This is a matter of public safety. This is a matter of sorry, just received an email. This is a matter of maximizing safety and well-being for the largest number of people. Pedophiles, I'm sure, feel very sad that they're not socially accepted. Stiff shit. But their unhappiness is unfortunately unavoidable, because their proclivities simply cannot be indulged.
I have no sympathy lost for these type of people, none whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, I hope they all sit on a bed full of rusty nails the rest of their life. Just, there are certain people, I am not a violent person. I do believe there are instances in which you need to defend oneself or defend your family. Instances where, like I said, generally I'll do what I can to negotiate myself out of a fight. I'll give everybody every bit of whatever. Okay. These people, fuck them. They need to sleep on a bed of rusty nails.
Well, I mean, they need to discover the joys of masturbation, right? Fantasies are one thing, but you can't turn it into a physical reality. There are a lot of sexual fantasies and you can't necessarily help your sexual fantasies. What you find sexually alluring, that's up to you. That's how you're individually wired. But you don't get to act on it, and
right.
That's and the same goes for serial killers. The same goes for everybody else, right? Just because something makes you happy, as a society, we've decided that there are things that make individuals happy that make the rest of us outraged, and we're not going to put up with them. And this is one of those things. So, and I don't feel, pedophiles can argue, well, it's just my nature. Like, I didn't choose to be this way. Okay, fine. But you do get a choice about whether or not you act on it.
Right?
You do get a choice about that. And so you've got to choose not to. And if you choose to ignore society's wishes, well, society will react in forceful ways.
Yeah, quite
Anyway.
negatively.
Yes.
But that being what it is, I actually had a good time speaking with Mark tonight. I thought, again, he brought a lot of good information, both insider to the goings on at DAL and some information about what he is currently in the process of uncovering. I look forward to seeing more of his receipts later when he is able to produce them. And I will keep a close watch on the things that go on in South Alabama, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some people who are not going to be very happy.
I can only hope that the authorities intervene here, because it seems like a situation that can get very much out of hand. It already has. I mean,
Right.
these standards, the standards of public safety at this institution don't seem to be up to scratch. Certainly, the financial responsibilities. Sorry, that's just my washing machine.
You have a Samsung, don't you?
I think so. My landlord.
Recognize the jingle.
Okay. But it's this institution has run amok. And it needs to be brought under control before something seriously bad happens.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hopefully they'll get down there and take care of this sooner rather than later, because I feel with as much heat being brought upon Kent Hovind, he's got a funny way of slipping out of certain situations, and they need to just grab him and put him in the old clink.
Yes, well, certainly it's where he deserves to be. He certainly deserves to be bankrupt.
Absolutely.
And to have his assets seized, because to me,
tax-exempt status should be revoked simply because he had that gubernatorial candidate on his show.
Yeah, he's clearly a political beast. He's got he advocates anti-abortion messages and pro Second Amendment messages. Abortion is a religious issue, but Second Amendment, there's no religious element to the Second Amendment. It's not a religious doctrine. He keeps on palling around with political figures and trying to advance his own causes.
Yep.
Matt Powell also deserves to be in prison. Pat Jeter. In fact, I would say that Matt Powell is a greater danger to public safety than Kent Hovind is.
Because he's younger?
No, because he actively advocates for the execution of gay people.
This is also true. That guy, my goodness.
He's not only a thoroughly ignorant, barefaced liar. He is a grotesquely violent homophobe. And I have my own theory about this being a product of his own repressed homosexuality, but that's completely speculative.
There's a lot of people who speculate that, and I think there's something to it. And if you would just come out and say, "Hey, I hate gay people because I'm gay," I'm like, "All right, cool. Now at least we understand why you hate gay people, and we know that you understand why you hate gay people." But yeah, I gotta say, his call for the execution of anybody in the LGBTQ community—that's just so silly. I mean, silly is not the word. It is dangerous. It is extremely dangerous, because there are people who do listen to these two idiots.
Yeah,
will take what they have to say as an instruction and go out and do this.
Yeah, exactly. And he is openly advocating violent acts towards gay people. He is actively, he is publicly advocating hatred of gay people.
Right.
So it's to me, he's an extremely sinister and dangerous individual, and he's more actively promoting these dangerously antisocial. So
I'm just curious of how much of what Stoney says is going on that Matt Powell is privy to, because Powell seems to have gotten real cozy with Hovind.
yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know the exact dynamic there. I think you know. I just don't know the exact dynamic there. I think Matt has his own peculiarities that don't contradict Kent, and that makes him useful to that makes him useful to Kent. So Kent wants to keep him around. But it is that the level of toxicity there, I'm surprised that anybody could. And your guest, Stoney, he seemed quite thoughtful. He had exactly the attitude towards creation. God made the universe. Perhaps he made it 6,000 years ago, just with evidence saying it was millions or billions of years old. That is a defensible attitude. If you want to take that attitude, fine. But science isn't interested in that. Science is interested in the evidence. Science is interested in what the evidence tells us, and the evidence tells us very clearly that the Earth is not young. So it's a so he was, as I said earlier, he was sort of surprising. I was surprised that he fell in with Kent Hovind, because Kent Hovind seems to be a very different sort of proselytizer, has a very different message.
Zachary Hooper, yes, I can give you the Cliff's Notes version or Sparks Notes version or whatever it's called now. The Reader's Digest version is what my father used to call it. I had Mark Stoney on earlier, who went through some of the allegations that are coming out against Kent Hovind, Chris Jones, and some of the other creation science evangelical board members. A lot of accusations of pedophilia and financial crimes. Basically, there's a lot that's going on that is coming to a head and should be coming to a head soon. And as soon as we get more of those, we will, we'll definitely cover that. And Cindy Lincoln, good to see you. Mark sent me. Well, good. He sent you at the end though, which is quite all right. You're more than welcome to back this sucker up and watch from the beginning, because I do think that Mark had a lot of interesting things to say. This one, I always unlist my live streams for YouTube reasons, algorithm reasons, but this one I might clip out some pieces and then put together a shorter version of what Mark has to say. I don't know. We'll see. That being said, Tony, what do you got coming up? Are you still crushing people with all of your glacial isostatic adjustment knowledge?
Well, at the moment, what I'm working on are satellite orbits for a company in Sydney that are working on cold atom gravimeters. So I'm reading up on how these things work. They're kind of magical. They measure gravity using clouds of supercooled atoms. It's really cool.
So you're doing all that scientific stuff that people say is not real.
Yes, that's exactly the sort of stuff that I'm doing. I've just received an offer to do a debate about the age of the Earth. I'm
so glad you said that, because really quick, Bass here for $4.99 sends a super sticker that says, I think it says, incredible. Thank you so much. My previous guest last week, I don't know if you saw the show. Did you see Friday's show?
No, I didn't.
You missed a good one. It was about Arizona House Bill 2319. Anyway, so his position on firearms, I disagree with it, but I would love to get the both of you in a more organized discussion about firearm safety, firearm reform, etc. Because these are the extreme, as little gun control as possible. And
Right.
I disagree with that position, but I would love to get you two in a back and forth on that. Not necessarily a shouting match, but I would like to get, because I think both of you have really interesting opinions, and because you're on the opposite ends of that spectrum, I think it would make for some really good show.
Yeah, just to clarify for Cindy Lincoln, these are called Bose-Einstein condensates. Basically, you get clouds of atoms together and you zap them with lasers, and the lasers take out the kinetic energy of the atoms, and that cools them down because they're not moving very fast, and they become super cool. So they all share the same wave function. So their motion is not the same as classical matter. It's actually governed by Schrodinger's equations. And that's what they use in this. But I'd be more than happy to have a discussion. I'm more than happy to throw my opinions around. I've recently been watching Jim Jeffries' skit about gun control. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
Oh, yeah, as I've seen. Yeah, he's funny. I like Jim Jeffries. He cracks me up. Road No Last Name says, please ask Tony about the James Webb images released today. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. James Webb images, those are the ones that show, was it not celestial, but basically evolution happening in space?
Well, it's a very sensitive telescope in orbit, a satellite-based telescope, and it's got a range of detection techniques. So it can image objects, in the radio spectrum, various other, the optical spectrum, infrared, etc. It can get a whole bunch of images, and it can do them very, very precisely. And I've only seen them in passing, but they are astonishing.
I'm kind of curious to get some more information on that. Like I said, I'm a layman, so I look at this stuff just like, ooh, pretty pictures. I have to default to the PhDs in the house on that one. I will definitely get with I will get with Sean, and we'll see about getting you two into a live stream together for a more structured conversation about it. It'd be so much fun. That being said, PhD Tony, do you have anything that you can't do? Is there anything you can't do?
There are things I can't do. I can't do backflips, and there are elements of social science that I'm kind of weak on, but mostly. Just to answer Cindy Lincoln, no, it's got nothing to do with super cold ice canopy theory, which is not a theory with any scientific validity to it, I'm afraid to say. But I shall not dump on you too hard. So anyway, but apart from that, I'm pretty good with what I'm doing. I'm making models at the moment and working from home. So yeah.
Now, just to clarify, when you say making models, you don't mean like the Model T that I made when I was a kid. You mean like scientific models, right? Or do you mean you're gluing?
No, I mean actual models. I'm not sure if it shows up in the background here. But I've got a bunch of models.
I can see back there, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see the AT-ST there, the Imperial Walker.
Yeah, this is the most recent one I've been working on. It hasn't got the figures on it. It's sort of a hovercrafty thing. I'm not sure.
Oh, very exactly.
Nice. It's apparently from some Star Wars thing. I don't know. But they make a little.
Now, Aaron Reese is calling you out. He says, by social science, he means he don't understand women. None of us understand women.
Yes, I don't. I have to admit that the female mind is at times a bit of a mystery to me, but that's okay.
And Chris Aaron wants everybody to remember that your favorite author of all time is J.R. Tolkien.
Well, to be fair, I think Tolkien is a lot better than Lovecraft.
Oh man, you're just trying to bait J.L. Warren in, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got no patience. It's just the man cannot write. Anyway,
Fair enough.
yes.
Tony, thank you for jumping on this last bit of the stream. It's always fun having you on. It's always fun talking to you. We got to get the Beersman back together. It always seems that whenever we're either on Irish Team and JL and I, we're missing PhD Tony because you're doing things like shooting lasers into clowns because who wouldn't want to do that?
I want to clarify. I don't personally do that.
No. Don't do that. Don't pull the curtain back, Mr. Oz. Let us believe that you're out there with a ray gun shooting lasers at clouds. Come on. That's our fantasy. We're living vicariously through you. So right now I'm picturing PhD Tony just out in the middle of the Australian outback somewhere saying, "Hey, there's a fucking cloud. Fuck it. Pow."
Exactly. That's what we do.
Oh, geez. All right, Tony. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Everybody in the side chat, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate all of my super chats, all of the channel members and patrons, and everybody who hangs out and has these conversations with us, participates in the side chat. You guys are all awesome. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned for more updates as we get them, and I'll have some videos coming out in the meantime. That being said, it's time for finger guns, baby. That's right. Everybody, show me your finger guns. There we are. There's Tony's. Although Tony's like a big laser cannon he shoots freaking clouds with.
That's right.
Oh, geez.